This is some absolutely nasty work by former general manager when he was on this particular podcast talking about Trey Lance and the fact that he has zero instincts, and he references Trey Lance's mother in the process. I don't care if you're pro Trey, pro Brock, pro whatever. Like, I mean, at a certain point, the discourse surrounding the 49ers quarterback conversation is just out of control. But I don't know. You tell me. Take a listen to the clip right here and tell me what you think.
As you go down this road with Lance, it just becomes harder and harder and harder. And you could show all the clips of him moving and all that stuff. At the end of the day, when his mama lifted him from the crib, he just didn't have that quarterback instinct. He's not going to be the backup quarterback. I don't know what they're going to do with him, but there's no chance. There is no chance based on the evidence that I've seen and based on what I've heard.
Michael, I asked you this before we ended the Lombardi line yesterday on VSiN. I think that he might be competing to stay on the 53-man roster. Like, is that where we at with Trey Lance right now? Like, are these reps looking for him to be able to say, can he stay on this roster and be a viable 49er?
Well, I think you got to look at this, right? Like, you know that once you reach a conclusion on a player, okay, once you really have a handle on who the player is, then you've got to make some decisions.
Listen, man, I'll be one of the first to tell you that Trey Lance did not have a good outing against the Raiders. He did not look good at all. But to come out here and reference things like that are close to home for a young player, it just feels like it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like there's a place for that. When you are a professional media person, you're also a former general manager, and you know how difficult it is. And we know what Michael Lombardi's history is. He was the guy who said Mac Jones at 3 for the San Francisco 49ers, fought tooth and nail with 49er fans on Twitter about it being Mac Jones at 3 just for it to be Trey Lance. So is this a thing where it's pointed at Lance, or more so pointed in the direction of the fans who attacked him when it was indeed Lance at 3 and not Mac Jones? Honestly, that's kind of what a lot of this discourse feels like. It's almost like it's a shot at all the people who believe in Lance. Not I don't know if it's necessarily at Lance. Obviously, it's about Lance, but it's like we know Michael Lombardi was a guy who got attacked by 49er fans when it was the whole Mac Jones at 3 thing, and 49er fans pushed back on him. And then, of course, it wasn't Mac Jones at 3, and then they came at him again, and he's brought it up multiple times since then, and they've gone back at him again. So it's just to a point where the discourse around this conversation is insane. And at what point do we deem this just the ultimate distraction? That's what I'm starting to worry about with Trey Lance. Obviously, it feels like this is Brock Purdy's job. That's not being taken away from him. We understand he's in a competition for quarterback 2, but let's say there's a world that exists where Trey Lance is quarterback 3. Does this level of distraction warrant him being on the roster? Like, I think that's a legitimate question that we have to start asking, because media aren't going to stop talking about it. Fans aren't going to stop talking about it. Players are going to continue to be asked about this. At what point do we consider this to be a distraction? It's just it's taking on a life of its own at this point, and it's just something that I think needs to be considered. That I don't think these kinds of comments are warranted. I don't think it's part of the conversation. We're trying to evaluate these guys as players and what they're doing on the field. To take a shot like that, I'm not a fan of that. It's never been something that I've been a fan of doing at all. But at what point do we start calling this a distraction? Because this is getting out of control at this point. I don't know. You let me know. What do you think about his comments? What do you think about this ongoing conversation and discourse around this thing? I mean, you're hearing it from all different sides. Let me know in the comments below how you feel about this conversation around the quarterbacks. And always make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.